When it escaped, the experimenters hesitated. It would cause untold havoc, yet they wished to see it in action. Can you guess the card based on the flavor text? I would assume probably not. It is a Weird Card Wednesday after all, so we are looking at a card that you either probably haven't heard of or at least might not know everything there is to know about it. If you guessed it right, you're getting a gold star for that, but the card is Niv-Magus Elemental, which was a rare, originally printed and returned to Ravnica. It is a blue-red hybrid creature elemental. It is a 1/2 with a very special effect. Exile an instant or sorcery you control, put 2+1/+1 counters on Niv-Magus Elemental. And it reminds us that spell won't resolve. So to be clear, the instants or sorceries that Niv-Magus Elemental can exile, or I guess eat, are only cards that you are currently casting and have not yet resolved. So it's not going to be cards in your graveyard. It's not going to be cards in your hand. It's cards that you are casting. Or I guess specifically are on the stack. Not necessarily casting. I suppose there is a distinction, and we'll come back to that because it is a little bit important. So, the card, where has it seen play? Not really when it was in Standard. There weren't cards that can take advantage of it. The correct way to use this is going to be to play very, very low-cost cards that you are okay with being, eaten. They don't do anything. Or cards that produce copies of themselves, which brings me back to the fact that it can eat cards that you haven't cast. It can eat copies of spells. Notably, Storm cards will produce many copies of themselves, and Niv-Magus Elemental can eat all or at least any of the extra copies. The example that is probably, one of the most relevant examples, but I'll get to the other ones, or other one later. The first one is Ground Rift, which was what brought Niv-Magus Elemental into competitive Modern. I don't think the deck was ever really tier 1, but it used basically 0-mana cards like Mutagenic Growth, and at the time, Gitaxian Probe was legal in Modern, and it used Tainted Strike, which was a card that gives Niv-Magus Elemental Infect until the end of turn, so you had the potential to get a turn 2 kill if you had enough 0-mana cards in your hand. The deck likewise uses Kiln Fiend, another card that has the potential for an easy one-shot when you cast a bunch of low-cost instants or sorceries. Anyways, deck was fun, but not the best. And then Gitaxian Probe got banned. I will post a deck list in the description off of MTG Goldfish that uses, I guess, only the cards that are legal in Modern, because Gitaxian Probe got banned, but you can still play the deck using cards like Slaughter Pact and Pact of the Titan, other 0-mana cards that can be eaten by Niv-Magus Elemental or trigger Kiln Fiend. Now, that being said, the card has also seen play in Legacy, which is quite interesting because it's just an indicator to how powerful this card has the potential to be. Because as it turns out, 2+1/+1 counters is pretty big. This is a big threat, and it has to be addressed. In Legacy, you aren't going for a cheesy Infect win. You're just using Niv-Magus Elemental as an incredibly efficient beater because it works very, very well with a extremely relevant card in Legacy, which is, let's just make sure that I've got the name right, but it's Flusterstorm, which is a 1-mana instant that can counter spells unless their controller pays 1, and it has Storm. This is quite notable because with Flusterstorm, it's a card that's just played in Legacy because it's good, and it also combos very well with Niv-Magus Elemental because it can eat all of the extra copies that aren't required. Like if your opponent has 1 mana open, it only takes 2 copies of Flusterstorm to counter one of their spells, and the other copies can be eaten by Niv-Magus Elemental. Another thing that's worth noting is that you can Flusterstorm one of your own cards, and you can eat the card that Flusterstorm was targeting, and all of the copies of Flusterstorm. So you have the potential to just have this very big card that had a very low cost investment. This is more relevant now because there's a set coming out called Modern Horizons. I expect most of you have heard of it, but is a unique supplemental set that is printing a lot of new cards, and they are going to be legal in Modern. And quite notably, they've reprinted Flusterstorm. But Flusterstorm is the, I guess, buy a box card. So it's not one that you can open in the boosters, which is, I guess, problematic for some people because it's going to make obtaining the card a lot harder and it's going to be expensive. But Flusterstorm is powerful enough to see play in Legacy, so it's undeniably, probably, well, I guess maybe not undeniably, but I'm willing to bet that it's going to see a lot of play in Modern. And Niv-Magus Elemental only gets played in Legacy because of Flusterstorm. And Niv-Magus Elemental was also already getting played in Modern because of Ground Rift. And Ground Rift is essentially a way, way, way worse version of Flusterstorm because Ground Rift is basically just Niv-Magus Elemental food because the target creature without flying can't block this turn is not really why you're using the card. You're just using it as food. Whereas Flusterstorm is a card that is good on its own, and then in combination with Niv-Magus Elemental, it gets a lot better. So I definitely think this is a card that you should keep your eyes out for. It's a weird card Wednesday right now, but I don't think this card will be so obscure in the near future. I imagine there are a lot of people thinking about this card right now in combination with Flusterstorm. That being said, Modern is a very different format than Legacy, and also I personally don't have that much experience with Modern. I had a competitive Modern deck. I played the Boggles Enchantment deck, but I don't feel like an expert on the format, but I do feel like I know enough to say that Niv-Magus Elemental is a card that could very well see a lot more play when Flusterstorm comes out, and this face here might be one that you might need to be on the lookout for. So that basically covers Niv-Magus Elemental. Super weird card, one of the few cards that interacts with cards on the stack in this sort of unique way. But that covers that. As per usual, we will be looking at a card alter I have done that will be a giveaway. This is another foil peel because once again I have not got as much time as I would like to paint a card, but I think it turned out reasonably well. This is one of my favorite artworks on a card that I have put on this one. I feel bad now. I don't even remember what card it came off of. I liked I think it's something to do with Graves, but the card is objectively bad, which is the reason why you are now looking at it on this card. I'm going to see if I can quickly figure out what it is. All right, so I figured out the card. It's Grave Exchange, which is an unfortunately bad card for how cool the artwork is. So I decided to take advantage of the artwork and give it a home on a card that's actually going to see play. If you do want to win the card, there will be a link to that in the description of the video. And as per usual, I hope all of you enjoy your days. And until next time, peace out.